Welcome back to the Crime Bull podcast, where it's true crime, no bull. We have a good show for you today. Before we start, check out citytowner.com, where we get most of our true crime stories. Citytowner is a popular blog that shares info about cities and towns across the nation, including travel info, food culture, cities history, and true crime stories. Check them out. citytowner.com. Okay, so today we're diving into a case that's as intriguing as it is heartbreaking: the disappearance of Angela Hammond. We've got a fascinating article from citytowner.com that really digs deep into the details, and I'm excited to break it all down with you.
Yeah, what's so captivating about this case is how it's held the small town of Clinton, Missouri captive for over 3 decades. It's April 4th, 1991. A seemingly ordinary night shattered by an event that still echoes through the community. Angela Hammond, a 20-year-old woman 4 months pregnant and brimming with dreams for the future, vanishes without a trace.
And what makes this case even more chilling is that her disappearance was witnessed. It wasn't just a missing person case, it was a straight-up abduction, playing out in the most terrifying way imaginable. I mean, can you imagine the terror of that night?
Absolutely. The Citytowner article really paints a vivid picture of how it all unfolded. Angela was using a payphone that night, talking to her fiancé Rob, when she noticed a suspicious truck circling her. She described a late 60s or early 70s Ford pickup, two-tone green, driven by a dirty-looking man in overalls and a baseball cap. Just that image alone conjures a sense of unease, doesn't it?
Totally. And as she's describing all this to Rob, you can practically feel her fear escalating with every word. She even tells him she thinks the guy's waiting for someone, which adds this extra layer of creepiness to the whole situation.
Right, and Rob, sensing her growing fear, offers to come get her. But Angela, maybe trying to be brave, maybe underestimating the danger, tells him not to worry. And then in a horrifying turn of events, Rob hears her scream, "He's got me!" And just like that, the line goes dead. Silence.
I get chills just thinking about that moment. To be on the other end of the line, hearing your loved one being abducted, and there's absolutely nothing you can do. It's the ultimate nightmare.
It's truly heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
The article goes on to describe how Rob, fueled by adrenaline and desperation, immediately jumps in his car and speeds toward the payphone.
And as he's racing there, he actually spots the truck. Angela describes speeding away. He tries to give chase, but in a cruel twist of fate, his car's transmission gives out.
Imagine the frustration and helplessness. He's so close to saving Angela, but his car fails him, leaving him stranded on the side of the road, while the truck carrying his fiancée disappears into the night.
It's like something out of a horror movie. And what's even more tragic is that despite being the only eyewitness, Rob initially comes under suspicion by law enforcement.
This is where the impact of polygraph technology becomes a key element of the story. While polygraphs were already in use in 1991, they weren't as advanced as they are today, and their reliability was often debated. Yet Rob agreed to take multiple tests and passed each one, effectively shifting the focus of the investigation away from him.
Imagine the weight of that, though. Not only did he lose his fiancée and unborn child in such a horrific way, but he also had to endure the scrutiny and suspicion of those meant to be finding her.
Exactly. The psychological toll must have been immense, but despite the initial doubts, his detailed account of the truck and the abductor became the primary lead for investigators. They launched a massive search, setting up roadblocks, conducting countless interviews, combing through every possible piece of evidence.
But despite their best efforts, nothing. It was like Angela and her abductor had vanished into thin air. The town was plunged into a state of fear and uncertainty, a stark contrast to the sense of security they once enjoyed.
This is where we see the broader impact of such a crime on a small community. Suddenly, everyone's looking over their shoulder, questioning their safety, wondering if the monster who took Angela is still out there lurking in the shadows.
And that fear is further compounded by the fact that there were other unsolved cases of missing or murdered young women in the region around the same time. This detail, as mentioned in the Citytowner article, really raises the stakes and brings a whole other dimension to the investigation.
It's a chilling thought, isn't it? To think that Angela's disappearance might be connected to a larger pattern of violence targeting young women. The idea of a serial predator operating in the area, preying on the vulnerable, adds a layer of complexity and terror that's hard to shake off.
Absolutely. And the Citytowner article delves into this angle a bit, highlighting the challenges investigators faced back then. I mean, we're talking 1991, DNA analysis was still in its early stages, and databases like we have today were practically non-existent. Connecting the dots between seemingly unrelated cases was like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Exactly. And you have to factor in the limitations of communication and information sharing between different law enforcement agencies. What might seem like a clear pattern to us now could have easily been missed back then, especially with limited resources and technology.
It's a stark reminder of how much forensic science has advanced in the past few decades, but also a sobering thought for those families still searching for answers in cold cases from that era.
Right. And Angela's case takes an even more bizarre turn a few months after her disappearance. A man calls the police claiming to have abducted her and offering to reveal her location, but only if he can speak directly to Rob.
Okay, now that's a twist I wasn't expecting. Why this specific request? What could be the motive behind wanting to speak to Rob directly? It's just so strange.
It really is. Was this a genuine lead, a desperate attempt to get information about Angela, or some cruel mind game by someone toying with a grieving family?
The article doesn't offer any concrete answers, which only adds to the mystery.
So what happens next? Does Rob agree to speak to this guy? He did. I mean, wouldn't you? If there's even the slightest chance of getting your loved one back, you'd do anything. So Rob takes the call, hoping for a breakthrough. But after a brief and cryptic conversation, the man disappears.
Of course he does. It's almost like this guy was playing a sick game, dangling a glimmer of hope in front of Rob, only to snatch it away.
And to make matters worse, the call was traced back to a payphone, but by the time the police arrived, the man is long gone. Another dead end, another missed opportunity.
It's just one heartbreak after another in this case. So many twists and turns, but no real answers. It's like trying to solve a puzzle where half the pieces are missing.
And speaking of missing pieces, there's another detail in the City Towner article that adds yet another layer to this intricate web of mystery: the abduction of Trudy Darby.
Right. I remember reading about that. It happened just a few months before Angela's disappearance in a town not too far from Clinton, wasn't it?
Exactly. And while Trudy's case was ultimately solved with two brothers convicted of her murder, the similarities in location and time frame with Angela's abduction are striking.
Both young women abducted from small towns in Missouri within a relatively short period. It's natural to wonder if there could be a connection. Maybe the same perpetrators were involved, or perhaps copycats inspired by the first crime.
The article doesn't offer any definitive conclusions on this front. Law enforcement at the time investigated any possible links, but never established a direct connection. However, the possibility, even if slim, adds another layer of complexity to Angela's case.
It's like having all these threads of evidence, these tantalizing clues, but they don't quite weave together into a coherent picture. The mystery remains, and with it, the enduring hope for answers.
And that's the thing about cases like Angela's. They grip our imagination, they challenge our sense of justice, and they remind us that sometimes, even with our best efforts, some mysteries endure.
It's a sobering thought, isn't it? But before we get too lost in the darkness, let's shift our focus to the lasting impact of this case on the town of Clinton and the ongoing efforts to find Angela.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine the collective trauma a town experiences when something like this happens. It shatters the illusion of safety, leaving a scar that can take generations to heal. The City Towner article really emphasizes how Angela's abduction transformed Clinton, Missouri.
Absolutely. It went from being a place where people felt secure, where kids could play outside without a second thought, to a community shrouded in fear and suspicion. Parents became more protective neighbors, more watchful, and a sense of unease permeated the very fabric of the town.
It's like a ripple effect, isn't it? One event, so sudden and violent, radiating outwards, impacting the lives of everyone in its path.
And even though decades have passed, I can only imagine that Angela's case still casts a long shadow over Clinton.
It most certainly does. The article mentions how her story continues to be told and retold, passed down through generations. It's become woven into the town's folklore, a cautionary tale, a reminder of the vulnerability that exists even in the most seemingly peaceful places.
It's a reminder that these kinds of tragedies can happen anywhere, and that the quest for justice for answers can span lifetimes. But it's also inspiring to see how communities rally around these cases, how they refuse to let the memory of the victims fade.
That's the power of collective memory and the importance of keeping these stories alive. And in Angela's case, the City Towner article highlights the crucial role that true crime communities, online forums, and podcasts like ours play in keeping the hope for resolution alive.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How these platforms give a voice to the voiceless, how they bring together people from all walks of life, united by a common desire for justice and a fascination with unsolved mysteries.
It speaks to our inherent human need to make sense of the senseless, to seek answers, and to find resolution. And sometimes just the act of revisiting these cases, of examining the evidence from a fresh perspective or sharing information, can lead to new leads or breakthroughs.
There's always that glimmer of hope, that one piece of the puzzle that could unlock the whole mystery. And with Cold Case, investigators still actively working on Angela's case, utilizing advancements in forensic technology, who knows what the future holds?
Exactly. And that's the message I think we want to leave our listeners with. Even in the absence of definitive answers, the pursuit of justice, the quest for truth, and the unwavering belief in the power of hope must continue. Angela Hammond's story is a reminder that while some mysteries may endure, the fight for resolution never truly ends.
Well said. A huge thank you to citytowner.com for their insightful article on this captivating case. We encourage all our listeners to check it out for a deeper dive into Angela's story. And to everyone out there who's been touched by this case or any other unsolved mystery, remember, you're not alone in your search for answers. Keep the faith, keep the hope alive, and never stop seeking the truth.
Because sometimes all it takes is one voice, one clue, one breakthrough to bring justice home.
True crime, no bull.